Hi, I'm Barbara Bruce, and welcome to a special edition of Get Out. We're in Pinetop-Lakeside, Arizona, at the Wall That Heals. This is a special replica of the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington, D.C. There are 375 feet of 140 panels weighing approximately 100 pounds each, 58,000 plus names, veterans that lost their lives for our country. This is the time to grab your friends and family, your car keys, fill up the gas tank, and get out to the Wall That Heals.
Plus American heroes who gave their lives for our country during the Vietnam War.
24 hours a day, 4 days. Start at stage. Get yourself somewhere around the block. 1, 2.
Tomorrow, throughout the day, the will open.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Midnight tomorrow.
Still like brand new wine. Still like
Wall the Heels is owned and operated by the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. We're the organization that in 1979 was founded to create the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. We created that and dedicated that in November of 1982. And after dedicating that, and of course taking care of the 3 servicemen statue, the flagpole, and maintaining that wall, in 1996 we realized that there were other traveling walls out there that didn't necessarily pay the homage and respect that we felt that the wall should have when it travels around the country. And so we put a half-scale replica on the road to travel throughout the country. And in 2018, we replaced it with this 3/4 scale replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And we travel to 30 to 40 communities each year, bringing the healing and reflective and education of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial to communities like Pinetop-Lakeside. So the Wall That Heals travels usually from March until November. Every weekend we're in a new community. So last weekend we were in Bullhead City. On Sunday we packed it up, loaded it into this trailer, and the trucker brought it here to enter into Pinetop-Lakeside yesterday afternoon.
My boss, Keith Johnson, our town manager, asked me 2 years ago to look into bringing one of the traveling walls here. He had hosted it when he was a town manager in New Mexico, found the very best wall, which is sponsored and organized by the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, submitted an application thinking there's no way we're ever going to get this. We're just a little podunk community in northern Arizona, eastern Arizona, and lo and behold, I got an email that said we were on the short list. They asked for additional information. We provided it, and we were granted the hosting opportunity. We were supposed to host for Veterans Day of 2020. The entire tour was canceled due to COVID, but we were postponed, and here we are. American Legion, I believe it's post 86 guard riders out of Overguard. And we had them from all over. We had riders come from as far away as Phoenix, the reservations, Springerville. They came from all over. They really got behind this. I believe we had about 55 motorcyclists. Total procession, I believe, was about 75. Mayor Leach was in the truck. Our mayor, Stephanie Irwin, gave the welcoming remarks. She really has been instrumental in this entire process. We set a goal of raising $25,000 to help support the Wall That Heals. Mayor Irwin was our fundraising chair, and we raised more than $28,000.
Hi, I'm Dean Murphy. I'm the cadre with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. When the opportunity came for me to work with the wall, it was a way for me to give something back to those veterans who served before me. I was too young for Vietnam. I was 12 years old when Saigon fell. I had left high school to go to the Army. I'm grateful to those who trained me well. The experience itself has been just phenomenal. I get to travel to new communities, hear about the people that these men and women knew, hear stories about them, to know they're very much alive in somebody's memory still. And that means the world. It truly does.
So the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was built in Washington, D.C., and it includes the 58,281 Americans who were killed in the 16-year Vietnam War. So those 58,281 Americans are listed here on the Wall That Heals in exactly the same way, because this is a 3/4 scale replica. Where that wall is 10 feet tall at its apex, this is 7.5 feet. Where that wall is 500 feet long, this is 375 feet. The only thing that's different here is, one, this is synthetic granite, and that's regular granite, and two, they wouldn't let us put a big ditch in the middle of the field here to bury this wall. But other than that, this is an exact replica. It has the same mistakes. The names are in exactly the same place, and the names are listed in the same manner so that people can have that same experience as if they had been to Washington, D.C. Today, starting at 8:30, we had over 50 volunteers come out and volunteer their time to set it up. It comes out of this trailer one piece at a time, carried by a minimum of one person, but sometimes upwards of 3 people, depending on the size. And they take careful dedication to putting it out there and laying it out in the exact same manner, so that when you come out here, you have that same experience of thinking amongst the 146 panels, it looks like one giant piece of granite. The names are in that same order. You can't see that this is any different than the wall as if you were in DC. We ask that the panel carriers carry them in the distinction that they deserve. Again, this is 58,281 Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice, and they deserve that no matter whether they died a hero or whether they died in a friendly fire incident. And so as they carried each of those panels out of this trailer one by one, and they got to the ground, Depending on the size of the panel, they either had those names face towards the heavens or had their face away from them so that we would protect those names. It was wonderful to have people from Show Low and from Pinetop-Lakeside and to have professionals. We had the public works team, we had the parks, we had some of the firefighters, and they worked together as a team. In the 10 years that I've been doing this, I have never had a setup that was as efficient and as professional and as quick as this. And it's an absolute testament to the pride and this community has in bringing this here.
My dad, he's on panel 47E, line 17. My dad was a tanker. He was killed up in Tree up by the DMZ, March 30th, 1968. I was 3 years old. I had a couple strokes, so I can't lift a lot, but so I was able to kind of walk with it and see him placed into his position on the wall. And my husband's helping, and he's also a Marine and Army, and he's helping put the wall up. So it has a lot of emotional meaning to the both of us.
The parking here at the park is all going to be at the extended parking lot. We're going to run golf carts from the parking lot over here closer to the wall so that you don't have to walk that entire distance. And of course, for those who are physically disabled, we'll bring them even closer. But once you arrive here out on the field where the wall that heals is set up, you get to be greeted by this education tent. This education tent is covered on both sides, one, with one that includes the wall facts, and two, with a map from Rand McNally from 1967. It allows for those veterans to point to the map, point to the places that they were, and find those places on the map that you're not going to find on Google or the internet or anywhere else. But then here, within this tent, people can experience the wall just like they would in Washington, D.C. We have the directories, which are printed to find each of the names on the wall, alphabetically listing them by name. And then, of course, we've got the pencils and the rub-in forms so that you can go down to the wall and make a rub-in on there. And then behind the volunteers who are working here in this tent have about 8 pamphlets that will help you explain about the wall. For example, you might come here and say, are there any women on the wall? And we have a brochure that lists the 8 women with their pictures and a summary of what they were doing when they were killed in Vietnam. Similarly, we have one for the 16 chaplains on the wall. But throughout the week, again, for the 4 days that we're here, this will be staffed and manned 24 hours a day by our volunteers so that they can come here and walk you up to a name. They can help answer those questions and they can explain things, whether you come here at 2 in the morning or whether you come here at 10 in the morning with your class for a tour. So Maya Lin came up with a design that would be selected amongst 1,200 designs that were submitted in our design competition. Maya Lin envisioned it was as if a knife had cut in the earth, causing a raw wound upon the earth. From end to end, it would seem as if the earth had opened up. The names had been running along forever, and when you walked down amongst them, you couldn't help to feel like you were buried amongst them, be one with death. And here at the apex of the wall, you get that overwhelming feeling because the wall panels tower over you at 7.5 feet tall. And this is that focal point and the beginning and the end. Most people believe when they first come to the wall that the far left is the beginning of the war, and yet the beginning and end start here at the apex. So here on our first panel, we have 1959, and beside that are the first 2 casualties, Dale Beese and Chester Ovanan. So the names are organized chronologically based on their date of death, and then when more than one death happens on any date, they're then alphabetical. Dale Beese and Chester Ovanan were killed in 1959. They died on the same day, so B comes before O. And this first panel is the first 760 deaths. This first panel covers the first 5 years of the war because we didn't have a lot of casualties, we didn't have a lot of service members in Vietnam, and this first panel allows us to cover those deaths because down here at the bottom of this first panel in 1962, we started putting in our full combat troops, and that's when we started fighting the war ourselves instead of being advisors. It then moves on to the second panel. The second panel, again, 740 deaths. This next panel, those 740 deaths, we're now fighting this war ourselves, is only 5 months because we've now started to take a significant greater number of casualties. Of course, then panel 3 East, is probably one of the most famous panels on the wall. Panel 3 East is a panel that at the end of We Were Soldiers Once and Young, Colonel Hal Moore, who's played by Mel Gibson, comes to touch on the names of those men who he had lost in the Battle of Idrang Valley. This panel here, again, 750 deaths. This panel covers only 5 weeks. So 5 years on panel 1, 5 months on panel 2, 5 weeks on panel 3, and 1965 ends on the top of panel 4. 66 flows into 67, 67 flows into 68, and the outside half of the panels on the east side is January through May of 1968. May of 1968 is the deadliest year of the war. We lose more Americans in 1 year than almost the rest of the war combined.
I'm Rhonda Baxter from Sholo, Arizona. I'm here because I have a whole lot of friends on this wall. In 1971, I lived in Los Angeles and I went to a rally for Vietnam soldiers over there, and I purchased for $2 a bracelet, an MIA POW bracelet. You picked it out of a barrel, so you had no idea whose name you were getting, and I got Captain Richard M. Butt. And I wore that bracelet for about 40 years without even thinking about it. And I used to go to the Vietnam Wall quite often in DC, and while I was there one day, my last time there, I found out that they had found his body. You can do that because he's got the diamond next to it as opposed to the cross. And so I went on a veteran's website and I asked if anyone had any information on his family. About 6 months later, I received an email, and the email just gave an address. It was Evelyn Butt, and it gave an address and a phone number. So I thought about it for a while, and then I finally called her, and it come to find out that it was his mother. And I told her why I was calling and that I had his bracelet. She started crying. His wife was pregnant when he left for Vietnam, and he was shot down, and they hadn't found his body for a long time. And he had twin sons. And she had a bracelet. She did not know that there were other bracelets out there with his name on it. And she had always wanted to give one to his sons, but he had 2 and she had 1 bracelet. So I mailed the bracelet to her, and then she and I wrote back and forth, and she sent me pictures of him as a pilot, pictures of him with at his prom, at his wedding, and we kept in touch until she passed away.
And it's been because of veterans and stuff like that that I've been able to find out what happened to my dad. Because he was listed as MIA for a long time, but then through investigating and stuff, finally found out what happened to my dad. And so it's really been veterans who have sent me on this journey of learning about my father and being involved with veterans issues and helping represent veterans and their families, and getting involved with Gold Star families. That's another big thing I'd love to educate, is people knowing what that Gold Star means. That Gold Star means that they have lost a loved one, a mother, father, brother, sister, immediate family. I thank Pinetop-Lakeside for bringing this wall here. It means a lot because as my father is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, and he's on the wall in Washington.
I just want to thank the community. This is, we are blessed and fortunate. Pinetop-Lakeside is the host, but this is really a regional event. It belongs to the whole community. And again, we've had support from partners throughout Navajo County, Apache County, so many gracious people that jumped in. We've been working on this, believe it or not, for 2 years. We had a great host committee and just very grateful for the support of the community.
Wall That Heals is open 24 hours a day, starting now here on Wednesday afternoon, all the way until 2 o'clock on Sunday. The magic about the Wall That Heals is twofold. First, we have modern LED lights on this, and this wall looks better than our wall in Washington, D.C. because of those lights. You really need to come down here and see that, because all the rest of the lights in the park are going to be off, and this wall will look incredible. And secondly, you need to come down and see this mobile education center. Because we're the organization that built the wall in Washington, D.C., we're able to travel with some of the 400,000 items that were left behind at the wall. You can see the sweater left behind by a mother who handmade it for her son, and she left it there at the wall. You can see the notes, you can see the pictures, and you can see some of those things that really are going to move you, no matter whether you've seen the wall in Washington, D.C. 1 time or a dozen times. Come see this.